Have you ever come face to face with a rattlesnake, staring at its eyes while it rattles its tail? Well, I have, and it's a moment that will make you pause. Something that's rather common around these parts. But if you've never run into a rattlesnake, I know you've run into a rattly throttle grip on a Harley Davidson. For whatever reason, Harley doesn't make these to very tight tolerances. So Stefan of Stefan's Garage, you may know him from all the Wilbur's installs that he's done, came up with a product called the Rattle Killer. And it's simply a piece of material. It's very slippery, so it doesn't bind your grip. And you simply affix this to your handlebar and then slide your throttle grip over it. And it fills that gap that creates that rattle. So it's a much more tight experience than the loose rattle that we all are used to. So today, we're going to install this, and I want to thank Stefan for sending me this sample. Let's get to the bike. So the handlebar setup is a little different on these 23 CVOs. So we have an external brake switch with this wire that runs underneath, and this needs to be disconnected. And then we're going to pull two T27s from the front here to remove this, and this will all fall down. So we have to disconnect this brake connector and then remove these two, and this will all come down, and we'll set it on the tank with a cover, of course, and that will remove that. And then we have two little T20s that we'll remove from the housing that will expose the rest of the wiring. We have to remove the heated grip connector, which is fortunately now right here in the housing, and that will allow this hand grip to come off. So welcome to the next day. It managed to get up near 50 yesterday afternoon, so instead of finishing the install, I took the bike out. We managed to go for a nice ride, about 100 miles out east. But today, winter has returned. Before you go taking your hand grips apart, I highly recommend you remove the fuse. We don't want the bike to accidentally power on. And if you're familiar with these CVOs, you know that the starter switch is right on top, and it is super easy to hit this accidentally. So we're gonna remove the bag, take the fuse out, and then we'll start working. The other thing we need to remember to do is put a cover on the tank. Anytime you're working above your tank, you want some sort of protective cover, blanket, whatever on this tank. Avoid any scratches or dents. With the saddlebag removed and the cover removed, you'll pull the cap off that protects your fuse. You're going to turn the ignition on, wait for the beep there, and then we'll pull this fuse. And that will remove all power from the bike. So it's now safe to work on it, no way to start it. I always turn the ignition back off so that when I go to put this back in, the bike doesn't boot. So we're going to put a cover over the tank. I think many people use blankets. I've seen moving blankets. I can tell you as a detailer, the moving blanket is very scratchy. Not a great item to set on your surface. This black center console is super easy to mar up. It's also fairly easy to get the marks out of it with a little rubbing compound. But I don't recommend anything abrasive on this tank, especially this area. So over time, I finally invested in the official Harley-Davidson tank cover. So keep an eye out for it. You'll see it go on discount. It's pretty nice. One thing I like about it, it's all felt on the inside. And then there are these really nicely covered magnets that hold it to the tank. And they're well covered so they don't mark it up. So it fits this new tank shape pretty well. Not perfectly, but good enough. As I said, I love these magnets underneath that hold it on. Next, we're going to remove these two T27s, and that's going to break loose your reservoir and your mirror and your lever. So this is all going to fall off. So you're going to want to have your hand on this, and then we're going to place it safely on the tank. This part, the front part, will actually stay there, so this will not fall off. But before I start, I like to mark where I have this oriented, because if you've not done so already, you can actually adjust all of this mechanism, where it sits on the handlebar. So if you just loosen these, this whole thing will rotate. So I rotated mine forward, which brought the turn signal button up a little higher. So I found it a lot easier to find the turn signal, especially when the bike was new to me. So if you've not made an adjustment here and you're struggling with your turn signal, I encourage you to do so. So I don't lose my place, we're gonna mark it. So what I like to do is I take some blue tape, some painter's tape, and I just wrap it around the handlebar at that area. And then take a Sharpie, and where these two pieces connect, so where this clamps together, there's a line, right? So we're gonna just take that line and make a reference on the tape where that line is. And so when you go to reassemble this, you'll be pretty darn close to where you had it. So our first step is to remove this brake connector. And it's got a rubber boot on it, so we're just gonna slide that off gently. And you can see this is all exposed wiring, something we're not used to seeing. And then that exposes a simple push cap that you then push in and remove. Pretty straightforward, comes right off. Okay, these two bolts can have a little bit of torque on them. So I like to start with a ratchet, a 1/4-inch ratchet and a T27 bit that's sharp. So when you start to loosen this, you're going to put some pressure on it to get it to break loose, and then go down and break loose the bottom one. And you want to be careful that you're not slipping around. It's so easy for this to pop off the screw and scratch. And if you look here, I scratched mine the first time I made the adjustment. And now I just have to live with that as a reminder to be careful and go slow. Whenever working on a motorcycle, always go slow. Take your time and don't put a lot of pressure on anything. Okay, so with those two bolts broken loose now, this will start to move. So you see you can adjust this by quite a bit. So you could roll this a lot forward, bringing that turn signal button up. Once I have it loose, I like to switch to a tool that's a little easier to handle. So it's just a screwdriver with an interchangeable bit on it. So we'll move it over to that. And we'll loosen these up. Again, I keep my hand on the reservoir and the lever. And we'll loosen these out. They're fairly long screws. There is a washer on each one. So you do not want to lose the washer. That one's now completely loose. Here comes the bottom one. There you go, it broke loose. So we'll put the tool down and we'll just take these out by hand the rest of the way. There's the washer. Do not want to lose that. Take the top one out, another washer. And at this point, this is all going to come off. So I'm just going to let it fall off, and you can see how that connects. Now this part is attached, so we don't have to worry about that falling on your tank. But this part's completely loose, so we're just going to feed the cable underneath, and then we're going to rest this on the cover. And there's these nice little pockets here, so we'll actually just stick the mirror in the pocket. Maybe this one next to it, a little more room. Okay, so that's nice and secure. And now we can move around to the other side and get this part off. So we have a T20 here and a T20 here. We're going to pull those off. You can see the importance of having the fuse disconnected. This ignition switch is right there. These cover screws are pretty long and pretty small, so be careful with them. All right, so the bottom one I did not remove completely, but the cover has come loose. So this cover will just fall off, so you need to make sure you have your hands on it, and that will come off like that. And you can see now all the wiring that's involved here. So this is our brake switch, and then we have the heated grip is right here, and then this is part of the instrument cluster. So we have those two clips. And then there's a little clip here that comes off that allows this to fall off the front. So I'm going to use a little flat tip screwdriver and just push that tab in. So you push in the tab and then push down at the same time. There's not a lot of room here. All these wires are together. So we're going to run my finger along the wire, and that will come loose. And I've noticed that the ground wire here is actually pinched. So it was pinched under this little connector here, and it is actually exposed. So that is an exposed wire of this heated grip. So I'm going to need to repair that. I'm going to end up putting some electrical tape around that. But that wire was pinched when it was assembled. That's unfortunate. So this is a plastic connector. We're just going to push down on it, plastic clip. So that will come loose. I found it easier to grab it from the top and pull back. And so that's just a door. It hangs there. And this is now all loose. So I should be able to pop this off and slide that hand grip forward now. So what we're trying to do is slide the throttle grip off, but it's in a channel on the housing here, and I cannot get this pulled far enough away to slide it out. So what I actually discovered is we're going to have to remove this throttle by wire spring. This is where the spring is that has it snap back and it reads where the throttle position is. And there's two T9s, one on top and one on bottom. So we're going to have a multi-tool with a T9. We're just going to loosen these up. I don't think we have to remove them, but we're going to have to loosen these a bit to get some more room to slide the throttle off. So we'll just loosen these two screws, one on the bottom, one on the top, T9, and that's given me a lot more wiggle room. And so with that, we can now pull it far enough away to get the throttle grip loose. You can see that your heated grip wire is attached to the grip itself. So you're going to have to feed this through as you pull it out. So go slowly. It may be how this wire got damaged originally during assembly. So we'll slide that through and pull it out. And there's our throttle grip with the heated grip wire attached. Before we affix our Rattle Killer, we'll wipe it off with a little isopropyl rubbing alcohol. That'll give us a nice clean surface for the glue to adhere to. So at this point, we're ready to install our Rattle Killer. You can see it's essentially a sticker. This is actually the side that removes, and this is the side that will be exposed. So it'll go around like this, and you can see that's really smooth. So what I intend to do is peel this loose and then run it around, peeling the adhesive backing off slowly. I intend to leave a little bit of the edge of the handlebar exposed. I just don't want this rubbing at all with the hand grip. So we'll leave a little bit of that exposed, and that'll leave us enough room for the housing to clear as well. Now I found there's a hole here. The way the hole is angled, this is not a drain hole, but I'm not sure why it's there, probably a part of manufacturing. But what I intend to do is just wrap it so that hole is still exposed, and I'll kind of use the hole as a guideline to keep it straight across. So we'll peel a corner away and expose some of the material, and then we'll start with this and peel it as we go. A little bit of the handlebar exposed, and then I'm going to use that hole as a guide, and I'm just going to affix that, and then we'll go slowly, and I'll keep rubbing as we go around. You'll rub that in, and there it is, the Rattle Killer. We'll see how well it works. So we're going to feed our throttle grip back on, and you can see it's channeled here, so it will connect to the throttle by wire spring here mechanism, and it'll lock in. And then there's this groove here, which the housing will ride over. So we're going to feed this wire back through. I think we can grab it with needle nose pliers, but if you struggle with it, you could tape some fishing wire to the end of this and feed that through and pull it through, but let's see what we can do. So we're going to feed this wire through the end and then try to fish it out through this opening right here. There it's appeared, so we'll just grab the needle nose pliers and we'll just kind of guide it gently. And there it is. We'll feed this wire through, helping it along the way. And then there you can see in here, it's hard to see behind this wire, but there's a channel where this tab is going to slide into. So we're going to put those two parts together. Again, we have to pull away here to get the channel on, and we have this loose to give us room to do that. And there we go. So that's now reattached. And I can already tell all that rattle is gone from this here at the end. So let's get the rest of it reassembled. So I'll start with my Torx 9, and we're going to retorque the top and the bottom of this throttle by wire mechanism where the spring is. Okay, make sure everything is aligned, it's in the channel. And we'll simply run these in very gently. No torque on these bolts at all, they're so small. Okay, so that's reattached. You can see there's no way to remove that without loosening those two. At this point, we'll reconnect our heated grip wire, and I almost want to run it underneath to maybe protect it. So I'm going to run it underneath there. Let's see if we can do it. So we'll use my fingernail and we'll just push up, and that snaps in. So I ran that behind this wire. This has a lot of nice covering on it, and I think that'll protect it. I forgot to point out I did put a little electrical tape on the exposed ground. It is not broken at all, so the wire's just fine. It's just exposed, which I don't like. So that's snapped in. I will say I never encourage changing the way Harley routes things, but in this case, I think it was a good idea. So we're gonna tuck some of this extra wire into the handlebar. So I'll pull this out to get me a good start. You do not want to crimp this. So we're just gonna gently push and feed some of that wiring back into the handlebar. Make sure all the wires are good and nothing is crimped, or there's no unnecessary tension on any of these wires. And then our brake switch will stay exposed. Now we'll reattach this clip here that holds this on. Make sure the wires are not in the way. So we'll feed those around. So all the wires should come in front of this clamp, and then you're just going to push that in to lock that in place. Our cover has two T20s, one on the bottom, one on this top. This is the opening for the wire, so we'll put that in place, and we'll gently put this in place here, and we're going to make sure no wires are getting pinched. Everybody is loose here. Nothing's getting pinched. Everything's comfortable. So we'll run these T20s in. As always, I start things by hand. We're going to go finger tight, no torque at all. These are tiny screws just holding this cover on the back. That's it. So that's all together now. So that's all attached now. We can reattach our brake master cylinder, our mirror with its lever. We'll use our mark to make sure our clamp lines up right with it so it's in the same spot it was before. We're carefully going to grab our mirror, our master cylinder, and lever and bring that around. And we have this exposed wiring here, right? This is going to get really pinched when you put this on there. So I encourage you to feed these through carefully. And then this guy we're going to leave loose. So he's going to hang down and not get pinched in this channel. So we don't want that. So we're going to feed this on here over these wires. And then it's going to essentially pinch all those together. So you're going to want to do this really slowly and carefully. You also want to make sure the housing and the throttle grip are pushed all the way forward. And you can see we have our line that we made that will help us reorient this where we had it. But be really careful with these wires. To me, it's a bit of a tough design that they have all these right here. They're going to get really pinched. So I'm going to align each one so that they don't overlap each other as much as possible. And then get the bottom one going, make sure the washer is in place. You're going to torque your top screw first, and the official torque is 89 to 97 inch-pounds. I'm going to go finger tight, but again, you don't want to over torque these. So the top one is torqued, and the bottom one, we have our clamp joint aligned with our line that we made when we started, so we know the orientation is the same. You then verify that your throttle is working. It should not bind and it should snap back. And you can see all that sound has disappeared and there is just no rattle. So this is a really nice experience now, really refined. What an improvement. One of those things that you never know you needed until you get it. Very last step is to reconnect your brake switch connector. Again, it's got that rubber boot on it. So we'll slide that in there. You'll hear it click, and then just push the rubber boot up over that connector. Well, there you have it, the Rattle Killer. All the rattle from this throttle grip is now gone. A very refined experience. I want to thank Stefan of Stefan's Garage for sending me out the Rattle Killer and allowing me to share the install with you on a 23 CVO. Quite a few changes up here, but now we're all more familiar with it after having removed it and putting it back together. I want to thank everybody for a great year it's been. This has been so much fun on the YouTube channel. We're very close to 1,000 subscribers, so if you're watching this and not subscribed, I'd be honored to have you on board. But until next time, in the friction zone.